Okay, the recording is in progress. So folks, I'll have you on all mute and we'll get started. Well, good afternoon, good evening, bienvenidos all, one and all, and happy Pride to all of you. You have joined us here at Cultivating Voices Live Poetry, and today it is our 5th annual Poetry Pride Parade. I'm your host and Grand Marshal for the event for the parade today, joining you from Olympia, Washington, with one of our Cultivating Voices members, Roxanne Groves, who has beautifully donated her, what we call her sugar shack, for today's Poetry Pride Parade. And what a parade it's going to be. We have such wonderful, wonderful featured readers, amazing people on the open mic. It continues to populate. And I'm just so looking forward to spending the next 90 minutes to 2 hours with all of you as we celebrate the amazing diversity of the human spirit that we call pride. Before we get started, I want to just tell you a little bit about the history of this program. Cultivating Voices started in March of 2020. We are an international, intersectional, intergenerational group now of 4,800 members worldwide. And if we go back to 2020, our very first Pride Parade, of course, was in June of 2020. And it emerged as I recognized that all of the Pride parades, which are such a signature to the LGBTQ plus community, such an important aspect of building community, recognizing that there were not going to be Pride parades in all of the cities around the world. We worked to create this simulation of a Pride parade online, and it's continued through the course of this is our 4th year, but because Pride landed in June, it's our 5th Pride. As a result of that, it's so satisfying to be with everyone today. There are people in the room who I hope they'll be reading in as part of the open mic that have been part of different Pride parades. As you know, if you are a frequent flyer here with us at Cultivating Voices Live Poetry in the Zoom room, you know that any given special event that the features, the open mic folks have likely been features before. We've really interspersed, so there's really not a hierarchy here. That any day the open micers are the features, and the features are the open micers. It's just an opportunity to give different platforms for folks. Well, before we get started and move to hearing from our first folks, just two other things. I want to let folks know that who are joining us, just having joined in the room. If you are interested in reading in the open mic, please do put your name in the chat. And Kim Ports Parsons, who's having a little bit of technical difficulty in terms of speaking with us, although she doesn't normally do this part once we're live, is taking names still for open mic participants. I feel very confident that we will get um we'll get everyone in today, and I'm so looking forward to hearing like all of your fantastic poems. I also want to give a big shout out to our readers in our June New Book Showcase. A bit of a bit of a overture to today's Pride Parade. Uh, it was a phenomenal reading. And we had Sylvia Byrne-Pollock, Erin Malone, Lauren Russell, and Julie Marie Wade. If you haven't had a chance to watch that program yet, because of course we have the recordings of all of our programs, thanks to the dedication of Don Krieger, I really urge you to watch that program. It's one that I've actually watched it already a couple times again, and I'm not able to do that with everything. There was just so much in that program. So I want to thank the four of them for being part of our June, our slide into our summer hiatus, but we have been crescendoing incredibly as we're getting there. So today is our final reading of our spring season, and we'll be taking a short break and coming back with you all in August. But for now, folks, get your pride gear out, get your flags out, get your bubbles, get your snacks, get whatever you need. We're going to get started. I'm going to encourage you all to please keep yourselves on mute until you are on camera or on mic, and as well remind you that the chat is beautifully in play. Show your pride, show your appreciation for our readers today. Well, unlike other programs, I will just do very, very brief bios for our featured readers, and I will be doing a few at a time. So I'm going to introduce our first two readers, and then have them come in succession with each other. Our first reader today is going to be Yeva Johnson, and Yeva debuted her first poetry collection just earlier this year. You saw her here on Cultivating Voices. She is a stalwart of our program here. We love having her, and I'm so excited that I'm going to get to meet Yeva next week when I'm in San Francisco. So folks, I'll announce that reading at the end of the reading today, or at the end of the parade, I should say, the end of the Pride Parade today. Following Yeva will be Julie Weiss, and I love this story of how Julie gets connected to Cultivating Voices. I have a friend who lives in Pittsburgh, and she sent me a copy of Julie Weiss's pamphlet, The Jolt, which is an homage to Adrienne Rich's 21 Love Poems. I read it front to back and back to front and everything in between. And we're going to get to hear poems from The Jolt and her second volume as well. I hope she'll put the covers up. They're beautiful as she's reading from that. So, folks, without further ado, let us open the Pride Parade. And our first floating in from the Bay Area in the United States is Yeva Johnson. Happy Pride, Yeva.
Happy Pride, Sandy. Thank you so much, Sandy and Kim and Dawn. I'm thrilled to be here today. As usual, I will play a little music before and after my poems, and I have 3 poems for you today. Um, uh, so glad to be starting off the parade with music. And before I read the poems, one poem was inspired. Sandy is right. It truly was awesome last week. So Julie Marie Wade's one line in one of her poems inspired a little bit of one of my poems. First poem is Queer Freedom. When we sprout up everywhere, we release the freedom to express ourselves with a broader brush and lusher colors. We increase the oxygen in the room and all over the planet. We allow the conventional, the typical, to loosen up, shake it out. We all become special in our particularities. Thank you. Um, the next poem is called Like Stella. It is an acrostic poem after Billy Zongewa's Evelyn's Island Escape. As if she were Stella's queer cousin, Evelyn's ready for this vacation break from everyday life. Kids grown, obligations on hold. She steps out in style. Plum roses scatter across her silk satin ruby red robe, draping her dark, lanky frame as she bats her lashes at the beautiful black women she met on the beach, and the highest clouds reflect her toothsome smile. Groove or no groove, Evelyn's prepped for paradise. And this is the last poem, and it is called Queer Varieties, after Julie Marie Wade and Tijana O. Eaton. In the beginning, it wasn't like that, really. Although, for a young person, it was a way to start. But to be honest, anyone born in any part of the 20th century arrived late, not at the beginning of anything, troubles or joy. But what I meant was, back in my day, it took something to be out, to be loud, to be proud, some courage, some gumption. Those were still the shame days in my youth. Those were the days women united, not just the queer ones, to take back the night. Wonder when the last time was we truly owned the night, when we really followed moon shadows for our own selves. Anyway, fast forward 3 or 4 decades, and you'll find me still here. The world has flipped on its edge and cracked wide open with genders to beat the band. And any of them is optional these days. We're no longer stuck with one way of loving or another. We've got pan, demi, a, bi, and more to add to the homo party. We've got non-binary, trans, gender fluid, and a to add to the cis, no longer subjugated under the gay umbrella. To tell you the truth, it has been a struggle. When I think back on all my memories of this queer lesbian life, it's felt so many times like it was me holding them breathless in the Sappho until the goddess had passed, leaving us scattered blessings enough to last the rest of our days. Happy Pride.
Oh, that's Yeva Johnson. No shame, Yeva. No shame. I love that flute. I'm gonna have Julie Weiss come on.
Hello, everybody. Buenas noches from Spain. It's about 9 p.m. here, where I am. And well, first of all, I'd like to thank Sandy for inviting me to read at this year's Poetry Pride Parade. I'm totally honored to be here. And also Don and Kim for everything you do. I'm going to be reading 3 poems each from my homage to Adrienne Rich chapbooks. Here they are, The Jolt and Breath the Blaze, starting with The Jolt. Ten. We pour over each painting, fantasizing ourselves into the corner of a 19th century basement studio. My breasts exposed for the sake of your masterpiece, swelling under your artist's stroke. Pretense after pretense, falling, your marriage a sham. You can't touch me like that in a museum, but I could very well plunge over the edge of my imagination. Later will be all glaze and splash, wordless. 13. This city and all its tragedies, every street we cross pinned down, groaning under the weight of something that died unwilling. A dream, an affair, it's almost enough to make me guzzle moonlight from the broken beer bottle at your feet. You're pulling me into the but you're not after a poet's despair. You're pulling me into the after hours gay bar where I'll discover an intoxication of city nights under my frenzied hands. 16. Your eyes, vast enough to hold the history of love, travel the length and breadth of me. What you mean to say is stay, as if the alternative weren't a shadow of thought dimmed. You swirling champagne, me drinking in the details of this restaurant, the dip of your neckline, our life flaming between us. When I set tonight's celebration to paper, I'll embellish the scene with everything we hungered to do, but couldn't. And now I'm going to read from Breath the Blaze. 1. What thrilling destination did you forsake to disembark in my Pyrenean village? So miniature, it might, if glimpsed through the blur of a train window, appear to house a child's hand-knit dolls or a puppet theater. Nothing substantial enough to wrap your legs around in winter. Blink and the Arda will have washed us off the map. The way my back tingled as you trailed me through the sleepy station like an exquisite ghost. 17. You spill out of my bedroom wearing nothing but an oversized shirt, translucent as a jellyfish, as your intentions, buttons loose, glimmering to be undone. Me stunned, aching for you to wrap your tentacles around me. It's below zero outside, yet the heat crackling between us is enough to burn down these walls, this land. The pot of oysters on my stove, steaming. Shuck me, you say. And though I don't understand the words, I know dinner is a delusion. And finally, number 20. Asombroso, how time and space conspired to merge our lives. Your train ticket wedged between the seats of the coach you abandoned on a hunch. My reluctance when she resurfaced, asking for another chance. My home brimming, poised in afterglow. Soon, winter will crack open, water rushing everywhere, the earth releasing its breath at last, the glorious emerald fields buzzing around us, wildflowers in the thousands, making love to the season. Thank you.
Gosh. Oh, I love that your debut with us, well, yeah, kind of, was here in the Poetry Pride Parade, Julie. And I love that we're able to kick off the Poetry Pride Parade with these two voices, Yeva Johnson and Julie Weiss, with that homage to Adrienne Rich. Folks, I'm going to encourage all of our readers today, including those of you on the open mic who have books or reading series, please do put your links to those in the chat so that folks can purchase your wonderful, wonderful, prideful creations. Well, the parade continues, everyone, marching down whatever avenue you are near. And next, we'll hear on the open mic Jennifer Elise Wang and Eva Regicide. Welcome to the two of you. Happy Pride.
Hey, Sandy. I'm glad to be part of this. I enjoy celebrating Pride with poetry. So it's Father's Day here in the US. So I thought I would read my poem that's kind of my tribute to the masculine side of my identity. And it's got a little bit of mention of daddies. So this is If I Were a Gay Man, or Times I Consider Transitioning. If I were a gay man, would you see me as more than a customer? Would you still call me sweetie? Could you call me daddy instead when you're done with your shift? If I were a gay man, would I have to go to the gym to avoid having 3 strikes, fat, femme, Asian, against me? Would I still be considered femme, or would T finally eliminate the features that curse me to an endless misgendering? Would I still be seen as weird for liking D&D and BMX? If I were a gay man, actually gay, like homosexual, I would know what attraction is and not crush on people who are nice to me and who make a pretty portrait. I would finally be rid of my awkward feelings towards girls that never became anything definitive. Or would I still experience internalized homophobia? If I were a gay man, I would enjoy the privileges I envied my brother for having, but it'd be at the cost of peace with passing. Sexism for homophobia isn't the trait I want, especially with the added interest of transphobia. I'm not gay or a man for now, but this bar still feels like home. And that was written also in tribute to the first event I went to after kind of COVID and coming back to the gay clubs.
Well, I'll welcome Ava to the stage, or to the parade stage.
Hello, can you hear me? All right. Thank you for having me on. I read a lot. Can you hear me? Thank you for having me on. I write a lot about sort of the intersectionality of being Mexican, queer, growing up in North Texas for almost the past 30 years. I deal with a lot of emotions that way. I've got this one that I wrote not too long ago. The title of it is Unconscious, parenthetical, Too Much Flesh. Before you know pleasure, you must know pain. Crucible started, the toll remains. A bit off the top, the front, the back. At initial glance, there's too much slack. They see you, you cannot hide. sought before knowing, just to deride, romantic skinning, messianic pulp, the sin of birth, for that held cult, nascent vessel or nascent soul, conscious of gazes, now boring a hole, the alms of blood, they must be paid, damn your welfare, I hope you've prayed, must look the part, your reason to be, appeasing the folks you'll never see, your reason for ale, here comes the tithe, penance will cure, no use to writhe, too much flesh, too much flesh.
That is Eva Regicide. Eva, join us. Come back, come back, come back. Fabulous to have you today. That's Eva Regicide and Jennifer Elise Wang. Always love hearing your work. Thank you so much. Happy Pride to the both of you. Happy Pride to the both of you. Well, as luck would have it, I initially did not put these two in proximity to each other, but we're going to hear from Mark Ward and Ann Walsh Donnelly in succession. And Mark and Ann have participated in our Poetry Pride parades a number of times. So grateful to both of them as writers and as kind of touchstones for me when I go over to Ireland. If you're not familiar, Mark Ward is a salmon poet, but what I want to highlight today, because I'm not doing full bios, everyone, is I want to mention that Mark is the editor of an international LGBTQ plus journal, Impossible Archetype. And so I encourage you to look up the publications online, beautifully curated journal, and consider sending some of your incredibly translucent work to Mark. I'm sure he would love these submissions from folks here on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. He's published a number of people. And of course, Ann Walsh Donnelly is, again, no stranger to our program here. And I'm so grateful that I actually met Ann in person first before the pandemic. So it was incredibly moving that Ann and I were able to transition here to the online version and continue our poetic relationship with each other. The first things I always love to mention your first pamphlet, The Woman with the Owl Tattoo. But Anne has gone on to publish a number of books, including a very, very well acclaimed novel that's just come out that I was able to pick up at Charlie Burns. And the next time I'm over in Ireland, I'm gonna get you to sign that for me. So without further ado, our next fabulous parade dwellers, Mark Ward and Ann Walsh Donnelly.
Thank you, Sandy, and happy Pride to everybody. And as Sandy said, I run Impossible Archetype, and we are open now until the 1st of August, so send me your poems. I have 4 poems. This is from a secret thing that I'm not allowed to talk about, but if you keep an eye in the next 8 or so weeks, you'll be able to read it in flesh. I can't say anything more. This is called I Was a Teenage Exorcist. I slipped on my faith like a platitude, barely the size of a brooch. It lifted those Latin words like a train rumbling from the book, imbuing them with power. It started as an accident. I liked tracing those calligraphic curses with my fingers. Mike, an unbridled pheromone full of slurs, lowered his voice, somehow flirting like those figures from my dreams, all body. Embarrassed, I studied harder, focused on the words, sounding them out. Suddenly he went stiff and screamed that I touched him. I watched his softness evaporate. I held the words under my tongue, ready. Next, Jeremy started hitting on me at our debs. He's married now. I did that with this scrap of faith, barely holding on. Mother quietly telling the other parents what would happen, what should happen, what will. A monochrome sea of concern nodding. It wasn't until almost 18 the classics student translated those something about oxen, denarii, and asked me if I was ready to sin, laughing, taking my hand. I said the words, nothing. I should have charged for miracles when I had the chance. My voice broke. Looking inside myself, the starkness of belief exposed the magic no longer worked. Each faltering performance justified he must work with us. He's too far gone. Slowly, I start a group WhatsApp thread. Father knows something is wrong and suggests theology mightn't be the best fit. I choose medicine. Packing for college, I leave the books behind in a neat pile. When I return at break with a boyfriend, Mom serves up our plates and muttering Latin. We go for drinks. Jeremy, happily divorced, doesn't remember an exorcism, but instead the sensation of me whispering hot breath on skin is fear. Mike doesn't recall us ever chatting, but admits to the intense crush he had. Father said he talked some sense into her. She insists that they go away each Christmas. I haven't been home in a few years, and I'm not even sure that I'd miss him. A few men later, one stuck around, Jim, the only one to pass the unconscious test, that after I told him all this, he kissed me and whispered Latin to me naked in bed. This next poem is about the same length, and then I have two very short poems. This is from a new anthology. It has the most amazing cover. It's called Oh Yeah, an anthology of bear poetry. And it's a poem, it's a fairy tale poem about being a bigger guy, two bigger guys, called Heft. Those thin men, skeletons in tight flesh, they say you put on weight since the whole new clothes affair, but at least there's no more pretense. They were sure of your shame, but instead you reveled in how your body moved. Let those nights aspire to tautness. You installed mirrors, had seconds, took to walking around the place naked and glorious, speckless. I had left home, being the youngest and having eaten them out of it. I found a job as a footman, yours. You liked to inspect us yourself, which caused a whisper when company was coming. Some queen and her stable of princesses to dangle under your nose. That day you wore a robe just about. My uniform didn't fit and I bulged out of it, embarrassed. We didn't speak, but a week later, one arrived, tailor-made. The others noticed and the first footman told me to go and say thank you. At your room, the maid said you were in the library. Asleep, naked, in a chair, your book had slid down, covering nothing. You awoke and stared at me, still half asleep, before realizing your body had woken too. You were embarrassed. Something no one had seen you be since that the day the whole town laughed at you, not for your body, but your gullibility. You had swooned over the tailor, you later told me, his barrel chest, his measuring tape covering every inch of you wanted to be true. Now you reached for a robe and covered yourself abashed. I'm sorry for interrupting, sire. And you laughed, smiled. You didn't. Jones, isn't it? I instinctively straightened up. Yes, sire, and you didn't speak for a long minute. I'm glad to see your new attire suits you well. I wanted you to be comfortable, a handsome man like yourself. The next day, dressed, you sat and spoke with me about small things, palace life, everything. Within a few weeks, our visits were twice daily. You asked if I would be happy to spend my time with you as your personal footman. You stared at the ground. Nervous, I would say no. I'd really like that, but there's just one thing. You sighed, regretting saying anything. The clothes you've been wearing have got to go. You smiled but said, I can't, not around you. I undid your buttons, your breeches, and kissed you, embracing your pet. I stripped too and brought us to the mirror to see us in our finery. I have two short ones left. This is from a newish journal in the States called Unchange. It's of gay poetry. I was lucky enough to have two poems in it. And this is called Lightened. Inhibitions on the floor beside my towel, the doorframe filled, the silent ease, two rivers. There's an overlap. Tonight, I am an offering, inviting guests, praying. I offer myself. He is surprised when we open the door to find his friend considering us. Look, all we have. Offering a turn, spinning me round, waiting for it. Sweeter with the sight of the other's relish. And I am thankful for this love of men, for nights like this, sweetly exhausted when I sing this hymn, the heaven responds. This last poem, and thank you to everybody for listening. This last poem is after a line from an Andrew McMillan poem, and it's dedicated to him, and it is called Hovercraft. And happy Pride. Now I move through the world like it was made. Each decision is hopscotch, a checkerboard of soft landings ahead. My legs free from having to drag me to a destination. Instead, I leap, and I'm airborne, devoid of choice, surrounded by it. I can twist, shift, change course. I could retrace my steps. I can do anything, go anywhere. I could even stay here, hovering above the ground. I'm sure it would start to get lonely, but I could deal with it, warming myself with possibility. I don't know where I'll land, if I still can, if I ever will. Thank you.
Happy Pride, everyone. Thanks, Sandy, for inviting me along again. Delighted to be here. I'm just going to read a small piece from my new novel called He Used to Be Me, and then I'm just going to read a poem after that. The novel is, I suppose, a mixture of poetry and prose, and it's about a 60-year-old man living in the west of Ireland, and he's spent most of his life in a psychiatric hospital. His name is Matt, but people call him Daft Matt. So this is just the first page of the novel. I sit on the stone that will mark the bed of my bones. You'll find they used to be me soon, flat body, washed up, wrinkly skin, no silly grin. You'll say what a waste of a life. Tut-tut sounds jump out, dangle like worms from your closed mouth. You'll make my letters M-A-T-T, sound of steel on granite, tap tap with your chisel. And what about D-A-F-T? You'll conveniently forget and say we were never that cruel, surely. And what about the Matthew you never knew? After a few prayers, you'll slurp your stout, breathe out. God rest his soul. Me, I'll jump on a white horse and fly to Tiernan Oak. And I'm just going to read one poem, keeping it short and sweet, from my poetry collection called Odd as F asterisk CK. Keep it clean. And this is called Lioness or Labrador, and it's really about the process of aging. Sometimes all I want to be is a lioness, pounce on my lover, tear at her clothes as if pulling flesh from the carcass of a fawn, roar myself hoarse while we wrestle to be on top, and after, coated in jungle sweat, lick my lips. Sometimes all I want to be is a Labrador, lie beside the stove, feel hands stroke my fur, watch lazily when a mouse sneaks into the kitchen, stops in the middle of the room, looks at me watching him, nibbles at a crumb under the table, and waltzes out the patio door. Thank you, everybody, and happy Pride.
That's Ann Walsh Donnelly, everyone, as well as Mark Ward floating on by down the avenue for our 5th annual Pride Parade here on Cultivating Voices live poetry. Thank you so much to the both of you. I know what it means for you to be out and proud in Ireland, and we're so glad that we get to share Pride with you internationally every year. So and so grateful for your work. Congratulations to all of the successes. Please do put the links to your current novel, which has been getting amazing reviews. I just saw something by Maeve McKenna online today, and of course, as I mentioned, folks, Mark Ward publishes Salmon Poetry as well as other publications with other presses. I'm not trying to just focus on salmon, though, when I say that. And he is the editor of Impossible Archetype. And when an editor is in the room encouraging you to submit your work, do it, my friends, do it. So please do. That is Impossible Archetype. You will love it. Check it out and then send your work there. Mark could be getting an entire an entire journal just from the Pride Parade today, possibly. Thanks to the both of you. And now we move on to the open mic, and we'll hear from Isaac Cohen and Mary Oishi.
Dear Sandy, dear Kim, dear Don, dear all my friends. Happy Pride to all my friends in the world and in Israel. Cohen. Love. The lovers found one heart. Thank you, Cohen, Israel.
That was it? Okay.
Right.
My mother's
Perfect.
crucifixion. The night my mother crucified herself, there was no cross in sight. There was no cross, rather a king-sized waterbed. The king-sized waterbed my brother told me she hadn't slept in since cancer spread to her spine. Sleeping on the sofa was barely tolerable. The waterbed, intolerable, unbearable, in fact, unlike when I came to visit last time. No cancer when I came to visit then. Waterbed, the only bed she had to offer. She apologized that since my brothers moved out, there was nowhere else to sleep. The waterbed was it. Nowhere else to sleep? I made a joke. It's okay, I've had my rabies shot. She laughed and all was well as the visit planning call wrapped up. When we got off the phone, I felt so good. My mother, who I'd wanted for so long, I wanted more than 30 years for her to love me, finally laughed at my joke. She laughed and was at ease sharing a bed, perhaps a fitting metaphor for newfound closeness. Our closeness just begun after cassette tapes back and forth across the country, tapes on which she told me all that she was feeling for those 30 years apart, laughed and cried what she was feeling, sang Japanese songs. I sent her tapes full of forgiveness and gratitude that I had my mother back at last. My mother back seems so surreal. My partner lover said, "You must go see her." When I went to see her for myself, she met me at the airport, smiling, dimples deep. Me too. My smile dissipated in an instant when we stepped into her living room. In her living room, a roll-out bed. "They thought it best," she said. As if a pair of 5-foot women couldn't share a king-sized waterbed. No, that's not it. They thought I would molest my own mother? A sword plunged through my heart could feel no worse. She saw the wound, another one, after being taken from her twice. The first wound's barely healing, now a third one as I slept alone. But this time I didn't mind. I wanted her to sleep where she had least pain. Expected her to sleep on the sofa when she came into the bedroom. In the bedroom with the king-size bed is where she changed into pajamas. Once in pajamas, she laid down on the other side. "Mom, what are you doing? You need to go sleep on the sofa." "No, I'm going to sleep with you." "You can't do that. You need to go sleep on the sofa." "I'm going to stay right here tonight. I know it hurt you so much last time. I show you I'm not afraid of you. I stay here tonight." She was staying no matter how many times I begged as she lay crying. "Please, Mom, you made your point." Her point more than apology, redeeming all the hurts of years in one. Her pain was the redemption. That night she suffered like a penitente. "God is to punish me for what I did to you," is what she said. "God wouldn't punish you for me." I started crying too. I was crying that I knew she'd stay all night. She'd stay all night no matter how I begged, no matter how much pain, that awful pain that in her final days would prove to me without a doubt how deep her love for me that night, how deep her love had always been. Thank you.
That is Mary Oishi, everyone, and Isaac Cohen. And Mary, of course, has contributed to many a Pride Parade and many other programs here. Thank you so much for that very moving poem. Wow. Mary, of course, is the Poet Laureate Emerita of Albuquerque, otherwise known as ABQ. And let's emphasize the Q today. Looking forward to meeting her in person for the first time in next week, or in 2 weeks, down in New Mexico. And Isaac Cohen, I love Isaac Cohen giving that one art nod to Elizabeth Bishop. You know, I love it when we bring in the lineage as well. So it's really fantastic. Those of you that have references to other poets, feel free to amplify those, you know, wave those flags of those who have come before and have walked in these shoes, have had their own parades. Thank you so much to both of you. Well, now I'm so excited to introduce briefly our next two poets. I met J.J. Pena at the Associated Writing Programs conference just this year in Kansas City. I'm getting lost in the swirl of the parade. JJ was on a panel with Aldo Amparan, who you'll hear from in a little bit, and Gustavo Hernandez, as well as in the audience that day, I believe, was also Eduardo Corral. It was a phenomenal panel, and I was just absolutely taken by JJ's just piercing brilliance. And as I'm wont to do, I made a little beeline and talked with JJ, and so I'm extremely pleased that JJ is able to join us today and read with us for the first time. And of course, everyone, you all know Karen Poppy is no stranger to this program as well. Karen's participated in just about every platform that we've had here on Cultivating Voices, including the Poetry Pride Parade. And I'll never forget her first appearance, of course, is famously documented with her dog Kitty. And Karen, of course, has gone from that first pamphlet in the inaugural year in 2020, Crack Open Emergency, to now publishing her first collection and well on the way to her next full-length collection. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our next two parade floats, JJ Pena and Karen Poppy.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for inviting me for this reading. Happy Pride, everyone. I'm going to start with a poem I don't write a lot of happy things, but it was the anniversary of Pride or the Pulse shooting, and I have a piece about, shootings, and so I figured I'd start there. Okay. Mi corazón cantar así. Did you hear about the shooting? My cousin Jasmine texts. I tell her no. Open up Twitter to see if something's trending. Nada. She responds. They shot a girl in her home. She was my friend's niece. The details. A 10-year-old. A drive-by. Some gang shooting up the wrong house, speeding off after unloading. Wanted by the cops. Where was she hit? I ask, wondering if the little girl died fast or slow. All on her side, the side of her head too. She passed on the way to the hospital. I imagine the little girl one moment in the kitchen, grooving to Selena's bitty bitty boom boom, chewing bubblegum, searching for a night snack, and then thunderclaps piercing doors and windows and skin, the little girl's body exploding with black potholes, her blood and flesh flying out in fruity, pebbled chunks. She must have been disoriented, heart pounding in her ears, biddy, biddy. She probably didn't even hear her parents screaming or feel her mother's hands damming against all the leaking. Her last sight must have been her mother's face, zoo-eyed and blood-soaked, cooing, "You know I love you. You're gonna be." And then the world and her heart landsliding into silence. A few minutes later, Jasmine follows up with another text. "I'm trying to write a poem for her parents, but I don't know what to say." I give her a writing prompt I once read. Pretend you're a parent who lost a child. Imagine what you'd want to hear. Write that. I spend the rest of the day thinking if I were that little girl's mother or father, I wouldn't want words, hugs, or photos I'd never seen. I'd want sound. To press my ear to my child's chest and hear the rise and fall of a loud, palpitating cumbia. Boom, boom. The next piece I'm going to read is I'm currently in Las Vegas, so it is literally like 110 degrees here. So it's so hot, already dying. So this one's about the heat. The summer heat feels just like love. My friends are giggling and then laughing and then cackling in my apartment kitchen, each with cups of wine in hand, drinking as if to burn sins out of their bodies. One asks, "What would you title your life story right now?" An answer, "Well, I fucked that up." Another, "Winning as a googly-eyed bitch." And mine, "How to survive the summer without AC," which makes everyone groan. There I go again, bitching about the heat. Yet none of them lives in an apartment that eats the day and throws it up at night. "Stop complaining," they say before I make a fuss. "We're children of the desert. You're supposed to be used to the heat." This is true, but like being born in the desert and surviving in one are two separate things. They say, "Remember our philosophy class? You just have to think of the heat in another way." And I know they're referring to when we read Aristotle. He believed we birthed tiny suns in our chests when we entered the world. Not a crazy concept to believe in. To test his theory, all you have to do is put your palm to your heart to feel the fire we make. But that image won't make me any less hot at night, and I let them know that. I'll think of that when I'm shoveling ice out of the freezer and throwing it onto my sheets. Not a response that goes over well. Insert dramatic eye rolls and stage effect moans. "Just be lucky," one of my friends begins. "You're single. Imagine how worse the night could be." I don't tell my friends that that's exactly what I daydream about before passing out, because then I'd have to tell them what I imagine: the heat, finding love, which my sister describes as the colliding of two suns. And then my last piece is going to be about, I think every Pride Month, Selena Quintanilla, she's like an icon for, the Latino community. And she's always here on Pride for us. And this is a piece I kind of wrote about her and also her killer. Okay. When you think of Yolanda Saldivar, you picture a bitter old bitch stuck in her little carcacha, tears gobsmacked to her cheeks, holding a pistol to her temple, howling. I didn't mean to hurt her. My heart is a weapon that acts alone. Maybe you hear the sirens around her, see the police officers standing beside their cars, pistols whipped out and ready to shoot. You'll probably focus on the blood and bullet holes, a body on the floor, Selena Quintanilla leaking, first onto the pavement, her insides ocean deep. You'll see the ambulance, the medics administering oxygen into Selena's mouth, placing white bandages onto her abdomen, Q-tipping her wounds. You'll picture Selena's mother, eyes puffy, fists clenched around crumpled tissues, screaming at nurses, please, please let my baby stay. You'll only have a flash of her father, see how he's splitting his lips open with his teeth. Your thoughts will whisk away by the heart monitor, going flat in the operating room, loud, startling, perhaps even louder than the bullets Yolanda shot into Selena, because a heartbeat loss is louder than anything. You want Yolanda to rot, to stay in jail. Maybe you even hope she kills herself. It's what she deserves, you say. How else can you hang up your teardrops to dry if she's still alive? And I'll tell you this, people are hurricanes, like my tia Ninfa, who I used to mistake for Yolanda growing up because they share the same face. A woman who pushed my mother down a flight of stairs during a fight. A woman who my siblings ran from. A woman who took a bat to her own daughter and hit her 10 times. A woman who once gently caressed foam out of my eyes in the bath and said, Mijo, it's okay to be soft, not like other boys. You just have to remember, you have a sun inside of you. Hold your hand to your chest to feel its warmth. Don't ever let someone steal it. Promise me. Thank you.
Karen Poppy should be coming up right now, right down the avenue.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you for the lovely introduction. I just want to give a moment of silence to those we have lost, and with the hope and prayer that one day we in humanity can come to wisdom, and that wisdom is love, and that wisdom is peace. We all are different, and yet we are all the same. I haven't yet read this poem publicly, so bear with me. It's going to be published in winter in the K-Run review. Love the semicolon. And I just wanted to say too, with this poem, that I do use a couple of words that are not used yet. I think that they may be in the future. They've been used in a derogatory way and not for empowerment. And those words are hermaphrodite and transvestite. So I just wanted to put out there that my reading includes them as a way of empowerment. Love the semicolon. Here's a quote by Kurt Vonnegut in his novel, A Man Without a Country. He says, writes, here is a lesson in creative writing. The first rule, do not use semicolons. They are transvestite hermaphrodites representing absolutely nothing. All they do is show you've been to college. Here's my response to Mr. Vonnegut. Maybe I'm taking this quote out of context and should be as generous as my junk I took all the way across your country to a venerable women's college. Maybe I'm taking my life out of context. Never formally diagnosed as a hermaphrodite, how can I claim I am one? Let me just say, I'm large. I contain a throng in my thong, enough to call who I am into question. When I dress, I am a transvestite every time. My sex remains undefined. often listed as female, sometimes as male. Only I can define myself. That is my first rule and my last one. While we use nicer words now, we represent absolutely everything. Intersex, drag artists, trans folk, queer. We are a lesson in creative writing, as life writes itself, and we are life. Education is hard knocks wherever you've been, harder for those without privileges that should be called rights, especially when being who you are is dangerous, transgressive, a death sentence. To survive as a gender non-confirming person, a miracle, a celebration, scaling Mount Everest every day, throwing rainbow confetti, dodging bullets, actual bullets, avoiding the razor's edge. Kurt, we of marginalized genders are men without a country, told in microaggressions, macroaggressions by a world escaped from humanity, that we have no power, are citizens of nowhere, but we vote. We vote for our very lives, to end violence, to have jurisdiction over our own rights, body and being, to end gun violence, legalize abortion, maintain marriage equality, make everyone safe, legal. Division, the ultimate smokescreen to destabilize democracy, to grab all the goods, to destroy our earth. Yet, for this moment, we must embrace what we have, this living gift of ourselves, each other, nature on branch and wing, swimming on the surface and in the deep, the music of our sunlit, moonlit existence. A semicolon is a sign of hope, life continuing. Love the comma, a sweet or suspenseful pause. Love the semicolon, a continuation of life. Everyone is valid, full stop.
Oh my gosh. Here we are on the Poetry Pride Parade. This is why the parade exists, my friends. This is why we're here. To see all of the flag. I will never think about punctuation the same ever again. Karen Poppy, thank you for debuting that poem. And thank you to JJ Pena for your amazing Cultivating Voices live poetry debut. The parade continues, my friends. We move to the open mic where we'll hear from Meriam and Ken Burch. And I just want to just very quickly, I know I'm not supposed to be talking about everybody, but you know, big shout out to Meriam, the co-founder of Headmistress Press. We'll be hearing from Risa Denenberg later. And Mary and Risa were right there with us, co-sponsoring the Poetry Pride Parade in 2020. And I have just so much respect for, for the two of you, and you, Mary. Also, Mary is also the editor of the Lavender Review. So again, folks, there's an editor in the house, and a journal that you should be paying attention to. And I would say happy Pride to both you, Mary, and also to you, Ken, my neighbor here in Olympia, while we're here on our parade here in Olympia. Thank you both.
To Nemo. My walking stick and I walked down the hill.
Your shoulder absent as a winter thaw this early summer, insects never still around my head. I follow every law. I use a key, unlock the door, your book inside, sent forth from mountains in a brook. Your shoulder absent as a winter thaw, but now I have your book in front of me. A storm again is threatening to claw the earth and sky and relocate a tree. Edna and Bob, your parents, brought alive, I see from skimming through. So they survived this early summer, insects never still. I lost my very being. It was sad. I think you are a spring, a daffodil, who gives me poetry and makes me glad. Nemo, I love your poetry, you know. Your seasons, windows, objects, parents flow around my head. I follow every law. I dip, I turn the pages, rooms and birds, rain on my roof, and everything you saw in Bali, Portugal, your gifted words from San Francisco to New York, the men, the Catskills with your loving husband. Then I use a key, unlock the door, your book that never shies away from cosmic lust, falling and falling, rising, rising. Look inside, hello, companion to my rust. I spent all winter on the coast alone, the letter of my life, now writ in stone. Inside, sent forth from mountains and a brook, from oceans and an island where you stayed till staying left. You tell me what it took to live within your walls, the price you paid to climb unsteady stairs. We've both been down and both been up the road of verb and noun. Thank you.
And Ken Burch is next.
I'm right here. Right here. You ready for me? Okay, well, hello everyone. Happy Pride to you all. This is a poem I've written from my positionality, an evergreen word I learned, of a person who's an ally or accomplice or whatever a word would be used for that. And I'm kind of seeing myself as sort of a parade marshal for the parade in this poem, looking at the people, watching for the people who want to end the parade. So it references, it doesn't use it references some of the people you're trying to stop you. And I hope they are stopped, because it also references the idea that if the people who want to stop the LGBTQ community get their way, they'll go after all the rest of us. They'll go after everyone who isn't fascist. It's a little bit of trying not to be Pastor Nemo in a bit in the sense of this. So it's one of my sort of Senro forms that I'm using for this, made this morning. It's examining their bigotry and then examining the dark kind of pride they feel. Far beyond absurd, to rage for years unceasing, hours upon end, at other humans, far from where they live or near, never seen, yet feared. Lethal lies are spread, those who no harm do, accused of despoiling youth, those who would assure generations new, you're fine, do not drown in shame, now are bound by laws, made by enslavers, hell spawn to cold silence keep. Cannot comfort bring, must not ease the nightmares, must let lies be forced on those who are trapped, those whose only crime, if that, is to seek themselves, those who live in cells, not of walls or bars or locked cells formed of the will of those who hate life, hate the thought of anyone whose soul is not gray, anyone who laughs or sings, or find their own dance at their own temple, anyone at all who does not live at all times in bleak, silent shame. Those who build these cells will not take one moment's rest until the rest of us have been locked within, have been forced to paint bleak dinge over our palettes, to live from then on within their inner cell blocks until drab death's release. In the end, is not their cold insistence that all must share their cells, must be stripped of all anyone would know as life, must like them live dead. The deadliest sin, fried in frozen certainty of all sins known. Happy Pride, everyone, and be safe and be free.
That's Mary Meriam and Ken Burch. Thank you so much to the both of you for your contributions today to the parade. And oh, I really appreciate both of your perspectives so much. So much to think about here on the parade already. You know, the parade is about, you know, liberating all of the ideas around the prismaticness of being in the LGBTQ community, which is a cause for celebration and also a necessity to still be vigilant. So, well, our parade continues with our next 3 features. And once again, I have to give a big shout out to Headmistress Press for bringing us the work of Samantha Pious, whose new collection is just out. She'll tell you about that. In addition to Samantha's original poetry, she is also a translator of the work of Renee Vivian, and it's just such a thrill to be able to showcase the range of the work that you do, Samantha. I'm a huge fan, actually, so I'm really excited to have you on the program.
Sandy.
Yeah. And Aldo Amparan. I met Aldo that same glorious day. That same glorious day that I met JJ Pena, who you heard just a while ago. I could not have been happier to meet these 2 wonderful human beings, and couldn't have been happier that they both said yes to coming on the program here today. And Aldo's work, debut collection, came out with Alice James Books, and Aldo will tell you a little bit about that book when he comes on. And then yours truly will follow for a short set. And thank you. Kim always encourages me to do this. So, but for right now, our next beautiful marching band of poetry, the one and only Samantha Pious.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for inviting me and for that wonderful, generous introduction. And thank you, Kim Ports Parsons, for taking care of the Zoom chat and everything. And I'm just so thrilled to be here. I'm going to read the title poem from my new book, Sappho is Dead. Can you hear me, or is this okay? Good. Yeah, so I'm going to read the title poem, Sappho is Dead. And as you can see, I am on location in the sculpture gallery of the Musée d'Orsay, right in front of the Sappho statue. No, just kidding. That's a Zoom background. But okay, here we go. Sappho is dead. Sappho is dead, he said to a seminar full of nodding heads. Shoot. Oh my God. I'm sorry, people. Sappho is dead, he said to a seminar full of nodding heads. I know you feel strongly, he lowered his eyes sympathetically toward my chest, about her fragments. But you need to face the reality that we have no way of knowing authorial intent in this or any other case. Shakespeare's bones lie moldering under the Stratford church, but I don't hear you singing his threnody. Yes, I too have read the seminal work of Barthes deconstructing the author and Foucault Frankensteining him back together again. I am here to tell the theorists to speak for themselves. While it may be true for you that linguistic signs are arbitrary conventions, that authors are cultural constructs, figments of our collective imagination, and that categories such as woman and lesbian, not that it would ever occur to you to mention bisexual, are not only fictional, but exclusionary and unwelcoming. While all this may be factually accurate, according to the Norton Anthology of Theory and Criticism, I would argue, even if there were no causal relationships between morphemes and phonemes, the task of the poet is to create them. Does not onomatopoeia have an entry of its own in the Princeton Encyclopedia of Poetry and Poetics? Even though the mind of the poet is always unknown to the literary scholar, no body can deny there is a hand that writes, a mouth that speaks. Poets often live hand to mouth. We are not yet brains in jars. Artificial intelligence, too, must be stored in physical form. I tell you, the second coming of Sappho may yet be at hand. One fine day, an assistant archivist might very well unearth a box of previously undiscovered papyrus scrolls in excellent condition, almost perfectly preserved, containing a few hundred lyric poems in Aeolic Greek, together with musical notation, dating from circa the early to mid-6th century BCE. On that day, a team of archaeologists will exhume the fragments of a tortoise shell and 7 shriveled strands of catgut at Mytilene. A battle for the soul of scholarship will rage. How many pages bright with fresh red stains? What internecine strife and treachery? Such promising careers cut off so young. Publishers will plan for the long war. In this year of plague and fire, and the implosion of the academic job market, truly, I tell you, the second coming of Sappho is at hand. For even as we speak, a small dark woman in a linen bedsheet walks with her harp along the Brooklyn Bridge. She circles the police and city halls and passes by the 2 construction sites near 40 Wall Street and the Stock Exchange, then pays the ferryman. Liberty may be closed to the public, but will that stop her? Like a quince apple ripening atop the golden torch. Is she singing a folk song? Chanting a manifesto? Though the words are unclear, it is Sappho's voice that unmistakably resounds through the ocean air. Hundreds of thousands of bi and lesbian women take up her chords, from Broadway star sopranos to those who never thought we could carry a tune. We thrill, we throb, we thrum, her music sweeter than honey on our tongues. Sappho has come again, and with her we come, again and again and again. Someday, when you are as dead as Shakespeare, someone, femme, plural, will remember us. Thank you. Oh, and I should say the poem contains a few quotes from Mary Barnard's translation of Sappho.
So thank you so much, Sandy, for providing this space. I'm so glad to be here. So I'm going to start with a new poem. This is actually just finished yesterday, and it's from my my new manuscript, which there's going to be news very soon. So stay tuned for that. But this is called Safe Spaces. And I wrote this thinking about how the safe spaces I had when I was in the closet were not really that safe. So safe spaces. Again tonight, I thought I saw you in your white undershirt, in your brown moccasins, your ghostly stubble again, your wet palms reaching for my childhood, And as I lost sight of you, I turned the corner into Ramon Corona, where the gay bar smoldered dim neon in that still lonely hour of the afternoon, when two drag queens spilled out of a red truck in pink gowns that swelled with air as they walked past me and into the back entrance to finish beating their mugs. I drank alone for 2 hours and saw the bar fill with men and boys like me, too young to breathe in this sweat-laced air and taste the last song spinning in the dance floor where I felt safe enough to remember you without shedding. One cold October night, someone I loved whispered tales of apparitions and disappearances in the gray ruins of an empty house, sheltering our bones from the rain. The month before, a man was found there, his face gagged and bound in barbed wire. Flames cracked against a thin bucket, against the hollow wall of our voices, and we listened for the snap of the floorboard, someone standing in the back of our minds or in the stillness of adjacent rooms, holding a knife or a gun to press against our spines. Secretly, I praised that cold slither of fear, the ache of our skins in all their closeness. So the next two poems I'm going to read from my debut collection, Brother Sleep. This was the winner of the Alice James Award and came out in 2002. So this is called The Day I Came Out. The day I came out, stains flowered the ceiling of my hotel room where I hardly slept. Sun leaked the inauguration of my new decade, and next to me a man I didn't know past the bends of his body stirred. I reclined beside myself in the shade to remember his face, exalted in my breath, and how his voice shook the mounting pressures of still water as he said, I love you, though he'd never seen me before that night. I love you, with his gin and tonic, his winter fresh, his navel piercing, his elongated O's. I love you, he'd said, and maybe war ended with the word. I turned to his sun-smooth torso, asleep there, his abdomen, a road map of white space, clavicle, shoulder, tiny bird of a bruise in the droop of his back, and I thought maybe there's still time for celebration, my future a sky blue terraria to display this ever-burgeoning affection, not affliction, not affectation nor consequence. I kissed the man's forehead and left him there, nameless, left with no number, only the memory of his skin and this brilliant yearning to be seen outside. The street pulse, shameless, so full of color, my body broke into a wave of electricity, merging seamlessly with the rest of the world. And I'm going to finish with this poem that references also the pill shitting. This is called Some Notes on Love. You are not a shadow. You're not hiding any more than the moon in a sleepless city. It is midnight. You're not breaking or broken, bent between light and shade. You are not a shadow bending. You're not hiding in your room at the family reunion because your hair is the color of the sky and they must not love what the sky looks like. You're not a bruised eye, a split lip bleeding, a cracked sidewalk in a city where a million eyes inhabit the dark. You are not a shadow. You are not a shadow. You're not the dark bobbing of a body from a tree in the summer breeze or a dancer punctured by a bullet. No, you're not a shadow at the edge of a bullet. In the brightest midnight of the year, you are bright smile, which should be kissed. You are sweat and muscle. You are skin and breath. You are blood, which travels the body with its pulse. You are kissed. Thank you, everyone. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Muchas gracias, Aldo. Muchas gracias. Beautiful, beautiful. And of course, thank you, Samantha Pious. Obviously, Sappho is not dead. Sappho is alive and well. And
He's not Sappho.
in our spirits and in our hearts. Yes, very beautiful sets. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is the Cultivating Voices live poetry, 5th annual Poetry Pride Parade. Thank you to all of you here in Zoom with us and all of you watching live on Facebook. I hope you are enjoying every magnificent, magnificent spectacle that goes by on the parade avenue today. I'm so glad that our next poet was able to join us. And as I met Willie Nour also at this obviously very iconic and well-stocked AWP. I mean, it was practically gay pride at AWP the whole time as I was walking around. And I had a very transcendent experience, numerous with Willie Nour, and so grateful. I don't know what poem he's going to share with us today, but at AWP for one of the very first times, there was an actual protest inside of AWP. And folks were at the book fair. And if you've been to the conference, you can imagine what that must have been like. And there were hundreds upon hundreds of people gathered inside the book fair. I believe it had been on maybe Saturday morning, in solidarity with speaking out against Gaza. And Willie shared his own poetry with me. Willie is an astounding Palestinian American poet. I am very, very eager for you to hear his tremendous voice. And thank you with all my heart for being here, Willie. And I'm glad to see you.
Thank you so much. Let's see. There is a proverb in Arabic that says, إذا كان حبيبك عسل ما تلحسوش كله. There's if your honey is made of honey, don't lick it all at once. If your lover is made of honey, don't lick it all at once. So meaning don't drain the relationship and overwhelm. Nature teaches balance and coexistence. If your honey is made of honey, don't lick them all at once. Honey will keep, but can you keep your honey? So don't swig and swill, honey will keep. Suckle slow and savor. Does the flower know the bee? Was it love at first light? Love at first sight? At first bite? Or maybe ships passing in the night? An orgy, honey is, from amorous amaryllises, perfumed primroses, saucy snapdragons, zazzy zinnias. These are all the things we do for love. An ebb and flow, a billion bees coming in and out, landing and taking off, workers who have never, ever, ever even seen the legs of their queen. So lick life like a lollipop. Your honey will keep. Just don't lick it all at once. This is a poem about the magnificence of wisdom of our ancestors, the trees, with whom we share upwards of 30% of our DNA and who still sustain us. A note, during Ramadan, dates are eaten to break the fast before the meal. At my sister's house, my niece opens and shuts her refrigerator bursting full. There's nothing to eat, she says, the little human at the top of the food chain. I am who I am, says the date palm, and I know what I know. I'm a palm tree in a storm, shape-shifting and unbreakable, a wisdom deep in the earth, enduring the test of time, sipping sunshine, siphoning sand. I will not hide. Like an antenna, I broadcast my location, a minaret for desert ships, a landmark in a shifting landscape. I wave as I see you from miles away. I lead you to water, give you food and shade. The sun circles around me. I block sunshine for a sundial. I pass the time, keeping time. I break the fast. I fed the prophet of Allah. I am sorry. Who did you say you were? The next poem, two poems are for my queer Palestinian brothers and sisters everywhere, above and below ground, free and imprisoned, for their endurance and their resistance to the occupation. في غزة نتخيل العالم قرويا حتى نصل الحافة. هناك عند نهاية الطريق القصير تجسدت المحبة الإلهية في جدار أقامته لحفظنا من السقوط. هناك تأخذ الأمهات بأيدي أولادهن ليحدقوا في الهاوية في نهايات أزقة قصيرة. In Gaza, we believe the world to be spherical until we reach the edge, where the divine love was embodied in a wall erected to keep us from falling. There, mothers take their children by the hand to gaze at the abyss. In Gaza, we climb the lighthouse in search of worlds spoken by scholars. We search for intelligent life. We devise ways to predict the annual meteor showers. In Gaza, tear gas is redundant. We never count our children. The beneficiaries of our wills are penciled. Nothing is set in stone. In Gaza, we are born in the liminal. We are fish in an aquarium, quarantined in the safety of our prison. We are cut flowers in a vase, severed heads, scented memories. Our babies outrun their mothers at birth. Our children do not grow old. Like the olives, they are plucked from trees at harvest time. The length of our life is 40 kilometers. I just have one more poem. My sign is water. I am mostly water. The ancestors in me coveted land and crawled out of the water. I am mostly water. I care not for the land. Dirt, you can have it. Dirt, billions of years of packed dust rolling around in space. Sweep it like dust bunnies and throw it in the garbage. I don't care for the land. I don't care whose prophet walked on it, shat on it. I don't care what prophet grows on it, spouts from it. I care not for the land, as my ancestors are now deep in the rubble of it, choking on the dust of it. I care not for the land, but I choke on my words, my tears heavy with the salt of the sea. I am mostly water. It's difficult to say these words, for they come out wrong. They are couched in privilege. Who am I to say I don't care for land with my feet firmly planted on the graves of the Dakota? On the very edge of meaning, knowledge is permeable like the skin of frogs, amphibian, claiming neither water nor land. I don't care for the land. I will retrieve my gills and crawl back to the river.
That is Willie Nour, everyone. Thank you so much, Willie.
You're
Oh
welcome.
my
Thank you.
gosh. Bringing me back to when I sat with you and heard those poems that you read to me. I'm grateful for your voice. I'm grateful for your poems. And I'm grateful for all that honey. I'm grateful for all that honey.
Thank you.
Well, folks, I am the next float on the parade, so I'm going to do a quick presto changeo and take my Grand Marshal hat off and march with my tie-dye rainbow bandana. There we go. Okay, folks, 2 poems for you. Well, the first is from the Glass Studio, of course, which just came out earlier this year from Salmon Poetry. And I have shared this poem. I think I probably do read it every Pride Parade. This is my poem to honor the folks in Orlando. And I want to give a content notice for folks that, because this brings us into the Pulse nightclub, that there is there is violence in the poem. So if you need to press mute, please feel free. This is a sestina, so you'll hear multiple things repeating. And it's a poem, of course, that I always say that I wish I never had to write, but it happened and I had to write it. This is Requiem for Orlando, for those departed and surviving in Orlando and everywhere. I am struggling now to comprehend my pulse, how I still have one, after all the opportunities I've had to die with my hands at the wheel, after too many drinks in bars, as I waited to become my uncloseted self. And now I have nothing to do but pulse with crackling rage as I raise an empty glass, mourning the fact that you, Orlando, lost so many hearts and hips and hands, all wanting to give themselves over to the other hearts, beating like hell on the dance floor before the clock strikes 1. You, alive, you, raising your luminous drinks to the glassy air, you, raising your brown Orlando hands to the heavens in the heat of your last dance at Pulse. And of course, you don't know this. Don't know that death waits around the corner like a drunk in a car. You are just waiting for last call, for your early morning heart to drum faster, to keep perfect time with its perfect pulse as it moves closer to each slick body on the electric floor, to the one you will leave this world with tonight, with your hands locked tight, pressing each other's calloused palms, your glassy eyes looking forward to the next time you raise them like a glass, clutched in the grace of everything that the body waits to release when it releases itself from its tenuous grip of hands in the act. And doesn't Your Orlando always resemble the heart, restless, resilient, eager to demonstrate how it is one with the divine, how it yearns to live from within its own pulse. And now I am pondering the woman who sat next to me, our pulses quickening on my porch steps before we kissed, then shuffled our wild hearts back into the deck to hide in the shadows of the one true thing that I know I have been waiting to discover with another. And now all the pulverized bar glasses resemble diamonds on the dance floor, and a pair of smeared sunglasses sleeps in the aftermath of pulse inside and out. Orlando, the world will wake Sunday morning with news of your hearts murdered. And in the fifth stanza, I've dropped a line in shock. My hands go cold with grief. I don't know if I can spare the time to wait for the one who could be the one, while everyone in Orlando is one heartbeat away from shattering like blown glass floats that hands once held precious, waiting for love to pulse. Yes, pulse. And still, I have one. You know, it was June 12th, so the anniversary has just recently passed, and just like to also take a moment for those 49 souls in there in Orlando. There's too much violence, my friends. There's too much violence that is perpetuated against so many beautiful people. And everyone is beautiful in their very unique ways. I'm going to take you to I want to also thank Glass, a journal of poetry. Ironically enough, that poem was published in the journal Glass before the Glass Studio existed. I didn't know. So, and this poem that I'm about to read appeared in Swim every day out of Miami. I love the journal Swim. And I want to end with this poem because I want to end on that upbeat crescendo with the hope. I want to end on the hope because so many of us began our journeys in deep, deep silence and had to journey through our own disasters to get to where we are today in these squares. And so I want to really celebrate that. And this poem, I think, was my way to attempt to track that journey. It's called At the AIDS Walk in My Pre-Gay 20s. Years ago now, I walked among the dying. I was already dead. I was a shroud of skin wrapped around bones no one could touch. This is one version of what it means to be dead. Around me, often circling, teetering like metal candelabra angels, were too plenty of the others dying, who in the moment had outlived me. Mostly middle-aged gay men dying into their shadows. We all walked for miles, for each other, for liberation, for purification, for healing, for life. The walks began and ended with swan boats in the Boston Public Garden. By the time I crossed the bridge at the finish line under a rainbow of tethered balloons, more among me were that many steps closer to death. The air exhausted in their lungs, labored further, heaving, sighing, some pulsing into oxygen masks while seated in wheelchairs, escorted by lovers and friends, some who would not be permitted to witness their beloved's final grasps for air before the lights blew out behind their eyes. But this day, sunlight. Every AIDS walk, sunlight. We would walk into the sun for miles, beaming, before together we would burn, our skin always like flash paper, ready to combust. I want to also give a shout out to David Groff, kind of inspired that poem for me. I love David's work so much. He's right here on Cultivating Voices, of course. And when I woke up one morning and I just started thinking about David and all his advocacy around AIDS, and that's what inspired that poem. Well, everyone, we have our final paraders coming before us, and I'd like to first introduce to you all the next our final paraders. I'm going to give you all their names, and here we go. We'll hear first from the open mic. Float on the parade, Harvey Soss, and then Julene Tripp Weaver, Risa Denenberg will be joining us. Again, I want to give a little shout out to Risa Headmistress Press, and also say that I got news that there was a double rainbow in Squim last night. Following Risa will be Lee DeRosier. Great to see you, Lee. Kara Briggs. We got to hear from Kara last week. And Kate Ortega will be closing us out in her debut reading here on Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Thank you, one and all. I'm looking forward to hearing the poems. And now, the Artful Dodger.
Okay, thank you. And I would just refer you to the invitation to the Artful Dodger's July open mic, which I've posted in the chat. This is my first Pride Parade experience, being more or less straight, and if not a bit bent. And I trust I'm not trespassing. I would like to think, and have always liked to think, that I share your pride and appreciate your struggle. There's been some really great work that I've heard today, illuminating. And I'd like to dedicate my poem, which I've made some changes to today, to my late cousin, Sammy, who was sweet and generous and died of AIDS at the age of 33. So this one references some of the violence, certainly, that Sandy was referring to. It's called "It Was Such a Pretty Face He Had." The cyclist who found him at first thought he was a scarecrow, motionless and tied to a cornfield's fence, not knowing his name, Matthew Shepard, or his species, or his age, not quite 22, only the blood was real. The blood is always real. And the skull fracture that might have served as a bird feeder had he hung about any longer, all askew, almost unrecognizable as human, tortured, beaten, gender-free, pistol whipped into a smoothie by those rhinestone cowboys who gave him a lift. Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson of nearby Laramie, county seat of Albany County, Wyoming, a couple of rodeo clowns putting the boot to him, apparently having nothing better to do than to joyride this gay man into oblivion, shifting the clutch away from neutral into ill intention, a queer killing mechanism kicking in. Perhaps his wounds dripped HIV on those straights who smacked him ugly, his only defense against the hate they hit him with. he had it, the HIV. Their lawyers, of course, charged with defending even the worst of us, would later claim justification, a simple robbery gone wrong, saying this swishy hitchhiker had come on to them one cold October night in 1998 with the North Star closer than gay rights in God's country. That Matthew Shepard's hand touched a knee, not inadvertently, but deliberately. That their clients, good old boys, went queer crazy as anyone might whose knee was brushed by a faggot, an acceptable term of reference in those days among Wyoming's Marlboro men, the sort of James Dean swaggerers he'd never grow up to be. They call Wyoming the equality state, not much of a nickname, not so billboard terrific as the Big Sky state of Montana next door, showing little Brokeback Mountain imagination, somewhat lacking for a license plate. Still, the murder of Matthew Shepard caught our attention and held it. Meet the Press and a Prairie Home companion wanted to know, as did we all, when the former altar boy was beaten, tied up, and left to die, left hanging there as a latter-day ecce homo, where, pray tell, was the equality, the companionship in that? Brought before the court in matching off-the-rack orange jumpsuits, with DOC for Department of Corrections on their backs, prodded by bailiffs to stand up straight and act respectful. 2 life sentences consecutive the killers got. The bludgeoner, McKinney, without hope of parole. Time to be served as yard birds with their wings clipped, toenails ingrown in the timeout corner of a medium security prison. 1 hour in the yard each day, where they wouldn't be hung as Matthew had been, strung thumbs up on a wire enclosure to be picked at by crows. A bloodied mess of a dark shadow, shapeless against the corn, with no more say in the matter than a scarecrow has, or a child who comes into this world nameless and stillborn. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm next. Let me go to gallery so I'm not distracted. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for all these wonderful poems. I'm going to read from my new book, Slow Now with Clear Skies. And the poem is called Radical Places. There used to be days free from AIDS. They were irresponsible days, free as the gay men finding themselves in the late 70s. Gay bars a thing, the lesbian bars full. Were we internally homophobic because of this culture? It was a mind explosion time. I remember that first thrill, meeting a real lesbian, going to my first lesbian bar. They were enlightening days. The thrill of dress up and party, the irresponsibility to have fun. But we paid bills, went to consciousness raising groups, found our people, our writers, Adrienne Rich, Audre Lorde. We fought repression, burned our bras in those days of freedom before the gay cancer, before my bisexuality returned, before the change to a simulation. But I knew I could never be straight again, even if I appeared so, would never marry, would never have the children I didn't want. I knew, and it didn't feel irresponsible. It felt right to be in this radical place. It felt new and exciting to consider marrying a gay man for his green card, a choice to make. And I, responsible Virgo, decided no. I did not want legal entanglement, even if I wanted my gay friend to have the right to live here. Certain things we have to say no to, like saying yes. It comes from deep inside. Thank you.
Looks like I'm next. Thank you, everyone. This has been pretty amazing. I'm going to read a poem that makes reference to the 1911 Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in Greenwich Village, where female workers, mostly Jewish and Italian, were locked inside, and 146 of the garment workers jumped to their deaths. This is called Yellow Star. In my case, the yellow star will be made of two perfect pink triangles cut from cheap dry goods at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, where the women sew stars on at the ready, hunched over their singers, and not wasting time on stairs, work right up to closing time, then jump. They didn't want to die so young, and neither did the gay boys who died in droves at the close of the last century. I would be one who would beg you to shoot me, who would know that borders lie, that I could not endure the march through the woods to the snow, in the snow to the trains at the end. We who say never forget also know that it could happen again to us, and we do not know more now than we did then how to make it stop. The stitching never ends. For practice, I have sutured my arm to my sleeve with triangles made from pages torn from the book of Job. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. This has been an amazing reading. Just blew my head off a few times. So I've been packing it down so I can read. It's good to see so many people that I love and know. I'm reading, oh, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I just want to do 2 quick clicks. Okay. I'm reading from a new series that I'm writing of poems. Where did they go? Oh, wrong one. Okay. They're called altogether. It's going to hopefully be a full-length book. It's called Conversations with My Gender. And this is the 30th poem in the book. With my gender, I'm vulnerable. They reach out for my hand and pull me toward a clearing where we can rest on a rock by the great oak's roots. The tree whispers to me from its underground fungal energies, be patient. Look how long we trees have waited, how much change we have witnessed. With my gender, my feet are bare in soft grass and new growth. They lead me across a stream, over sticks and rocks. Small fish graze my ankles, leaving me with chills like the end of a poem. With my gender, the sky is changing. It is red at noon for a moment as we watch flashes of light. Is it vitreous tissue behind my eye or burn of fire in the distance? The sky is fickle as I am. One day I am becoming clouds that form streaks of white above the ocean. Another day I plunge to earth as lightning. With my gender comes fire, and I am a sequoia forest. My carbon reserves have waited decades for this burn, revitalizing ancient, dormant buds to new life. Thank you.
Hi, Kate. Today I'll be reading a poem that begins and ends with some borrowed text, and I'll indicate that near the beginning and end. It's named Asking Myself What a Prayer Book Can Be, after Stacy Waite. She said that the outlines of people and things are delicate, that they broke like cotton thread. Those words are from Elena Ferrante. I can learn how to pray. I'll bind together others' poems and learn them each by flesh. By 9 o'clock, I'll supple myself to sleep by mouthing out the words. Silence and spit will lullaby me. Let it be the gunky crystal caught in my duct. You saw just the tail of a dry-eyed wink, and still we simmer, sprawl, and seep. To know that I can only climb a tree halfway up its crown means I revel in attempt. Urge saunters down my pocked downy arms, and one need grasps to a knot that swirls, unsung it barks. Hidden ground, I wish I could cross sapwood but stop before pith, that middling of dead matter, to see inside the cork and sigh. While I peel petals every now and then, this day I defy the desire to vivisect. Trees loom too mythic, too muscular and stiff. For me to wick blossoms off these groundly stems, swerving this way through rock. I do not ask first to decode a dovetail that glistens and signals itself a blunt relief. Pleasure gone in a second, and here I am left with a prick. Underground, where our molars sorely bathe in tinsel-tasting gums, milled tissues refuse to bear my bursting pearly teeth, and so they push. Roots rip, a sway, a fraying of the monostitch. Sturdy cabinet locks for our heavenly stink. Still fibers bulb as sweat and cell are shed. I'll unlace my shoes, but I won't pray from your book. I'll recite odorous words informally blessed. And from Alice Walker, you got to hold tight a place in you where they can't come. Thank you for listening.
Everyone, that was Kate Ortega closing out our Poetry Pride parade. I want to thank every one of you for being alive, speaking your truth, surviving, thriving, and writing. You know, it's no mistake that at the end of every program, I encourage and I say, keep writing. I say it as much to myself as I do to every single one of you that comes into the room, because for so many years I was dormant. And so when I sit at this event every year, I'm reminded of those years. And it makes gatherings like today's as sweet as Willie Nour's honey. Sweeter than Willie Nour's honey. Sweeter. The display of what we heard today was nothing short of exceptional, nothing short of transcendent, nothing short of everything that we've longed to, needed to, and now have said. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you, both our featured readers and those of you on the open mic. And as you know, you're interchangeable. You're interchangeable. In fact, many of the folks that were in the open mic are going to be scheduled later on in our fall season and our winter season to come back and read, likely from their new books. Well, I would like to, before I do what I always do, which is read the list of names, would everyone please unmute and show your gratitude and appreciation for this amazing display of our deep, deep pride with one another.
Woohoo!
Woo! There it is! Lee, great flag, great flag.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Everybody, we heard today at the top of the hour, unfortunately, a few folks who had to leave a little early. You know, we had Yeva Johnson with her flute beginning the parade. We heard from Julie Weiss, Jennifer Elise Wang, Eva Regicide, Mark Ward, Ann Walsh Donnelly, Isaac Cohen, J.J. Pena, Karen Poppy, Meriam, Ken Burch, Samantha Pious, Aldo Amparan, Willie Nour, a few poems by me for good measure, Harvey Soss, Julene Tripp Weaver, Risa Denenberg, Lee Desrosierr, and Kate Ortega. And I want to just pick up that thread of what Lee said. As I'm reading the names, I'm getting chills because, you know, you all are part of my community. And I belong to many communities, but this is a very deep, deep community inside our Cultivating Voices live community. And I love you all for coming today. Thank you so, so much. And of course, everyone, this closes out our spring season. We're going to be heading, Kim and Don and I are going to be going on our summer vacation. And at this time, I also just would ask if you would please unmute and show your appreciation for what Kim Parsons and Don Krieger do for this program and have been doing for months as we head into our summer vacation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We could not do the program without them. Well, we will be returning, folks. We will be returning at the end of August. I'm a little, my calendar's a little off. I'm a little verklempt with the program, and it's the last week of August. I think it's the 29th of August, and maybe somebody's going to put something in the chat to help me out here, but it's okay if we don't. We'll be returning with our poetry barbecue, our summer's end poetry barbecue. So come on back, fresh from what I hope is a glorious summer for all of you. And of course, over these next couple months, you know, take great care of yourselves. Before I say that, I want to also just say, I hope I'll get to see many of you. I'm continuing on tour, of course, and I'm going to be in San Francisco next week with Karen, Poppy, and Yeva Johnson. We're going to be reading on next Sunday. So yeah, I don't really have a Sunday off for a while still. But what better way to spend my Sunday than with Yeva and Karen? Be heading on over to New Mexico the last week, and I'll be in New York and Massachusetts over the summer. So I hope I'll see many of you on the road this summer, and if not, until then, maybe in Zoom squares and in other venues. But of course, please take great, great care of yourselves and take exceptional care of your beloveds. You know, keep writing. We need your poems when we come back, and I'll look so forward to seeing what you've been up to as you've been keeping writing over these summer months here it's summer here in the States. I realize that it's not summer in other parts of the world, but for these next couple months. Everyone, thank you so, so much. This 5th annual Poetry Pride Parade, I have been imagining it for about a year, knowing that we were coming up upon this milestone. It was so moving in all the prismatic ways that I look for poetry to be. And you all certainly created that amazing constellation. Look up into the sky over these next couple months and remind yourself that every single day you are part of that. You are part of that you are part of the constellations in the sky. You truly, truly are. Thank you for your humanity and everything you bring every day. I'll see you down the road. And thanks again to Kim and Dawn. And I'm Sandy Yannone for Cultivating Voices Live Poetry. Until next time, be well.